being a Christian is not a cure-all. It's not like, well, you know, I thought, this actually, the guy that wrote the Barbarian Way book that I told you I was reading, he even said this. He said, you know, some people are so disillusioned with Christianity because they've been given the impression that if they just accept Jesus, the world's going to be good and their life's going to be great. They're going to have a car in the garage. And where did they get that idea? Because too many Christians give them that idea. That if you just do this, your life is great. Or all these little material things like your bank account or your job, they're all going to be fixed. No. They won't be, because God is interested in forever. He's interested in us reflecting His love for the years that we're, and then forever. He's interested in just being in a relationship with us. And good things and bad things are going to happen because that's the imperfect world we live in. Can't stop it. You know, I could be a really good person, and Caitlin could be a nutcase, and she could decide to shoot me out of anger.
This is new. He's never done this before.
Now, I'm a good person. I do good things, but I can't control Caitlin. Caitlin has her own free will as well. Caitlin can make her choices as well. That's her privilege. But again, it's still only happening on the little grain. It's not, you know what I'm saying? We have an entire eternity of life ahead of us. Doesn't it make sense to pay much more attention to where you spend all the rest of it than to where you spend this one? Does anyone have a question relating to anything we've said? That's a good idea. I've done that a couple times, and that's a great idea. Does anyone have a question? Let me answer one more, because I know this is another big one that comes up. Why Jesus? I mean, there are plenty of religious leaders throughout history, right? Very, very, very religious men and great men. Here's why Jesus. Are you listening? Put your thinking caps on. This is so important. So important. Number one, Jesus fulfilled every prophecy spoken of the Messiah, written hundreds of years before He was born. He fulfilled all of them. All of them. I believe there are 60-some prophecies concerning who this Messiah would be, where he would be born, how He would be born, how He would die, what He would do, all kinds of stuff. He fulfilled all of them. I believe some scientists did some calculations and said that the odds of Him fulfilling 6 of them would be like, you know, like 1 to the 15 zeros after it. I mean, it gets beyond the realm of possibility. So prophecy alone confirms that He... Prophecy alone confirms that He was the one that was prophesied about. The other big one is that, another big one is that He rose from the dead. Now, a lot of people are like, well, I don't know about that.
It's going to be a voice actor. No extra here.
Well, somebody will say, well, I don't know about that. Well, you guys, 500 people saw Him alive after He died. And when He rose again, 500 people were eyewitnesses. Now, let me ask you, if you were brought into court and you had to prove something and you brought in 500 witnesses, do you think you'd win the case? Probably. There are plenty of evidences, I mean physical evidences, that he rose from the grave. People don't want to talk about Him because if He did, Then he is who he claimed he is, and that opens up a whole can of worms. Now I'm somehow responsible. What do I do with that? If he is who he claimed he was, what do I do with that? And the third reason is because Jesus claimed to be the one and only way back to a relationship with God. The only way. Not one of many. Not one from a short list. The only way. Now, if you ask anybody on the street, who do you think Jesus was? What do you think of Jesus? What are they going to say? He was a great teacher. He was a very gifted speaker. He was a great prophet. They're going to say all these nice things, right? They may not concede that he was the one and only Son of God sent to save us. They may not admit that, but they'll never say anything bad about him, right? He's always a good guy, right? Well, here's the problem with that argument. If he isn't who he claimed he is, he's not a good guy. Think about it, right? Right? If he claims to be the only way to God and no one's going to get to God except through him, if he was not who he claimed, then he is a liar. Mm-hmm. He is a deceiver of millions. Nobody ever says that. But those are your only choices. He either is who he claimed he was, or he is a bad guy. Mm-hmm. So that's a serious thought to think about. That's a serious thought to contemplate. Does anyone have any question? It's okay if you don't, but is there any kind of a burning? Well, what about? Does anyone have a question before we finish up? Oh, hi. Yes.
I was wondering, about Christianity and science, and how come that conflict so much?
That's a great one.
Yeah.
How come Christianity and science conflict so much?
Yeah.
Do you want my answer? Where did science come from?
Yes.
People. People who don't want. Exactly. People who refuse to acknowledge any kind of accountability to a creator. You know what, you guys? I don't want to get off on this, but I've done a lot of research. I've done a lot of research on evolution, the whole evolution creation thing, and all that stuff. And you know what, you guys? Let me just say this: if you're a thinking person, there's tons of stuff you don't know that you've not learned. Tons of stuff. Tons of physical, observable, scientific proof that a lot of the garbage you read in textbooks is not necessarily so. Why would they do that? You tell me. If I don't want to acknowledge that God is God, if I don't want to acknowledge that I am accountable to anyone, what's the best thing to do? Write out an entire scenario where he doesn't even exist. And I just happen to show up one day out of a primordial goo. Right? Mm-hmm. You know what's funny to me, you guys? I've followed this, and over the last 25 years, they've revised the theory of evolution about 100 times. You know why? Because they keep finding things in nature that blow their whole idea out of the water.
And it is just that. It's only
Yeah,
a theory.
the theory of evolution. You know what that means? Theory means it's just an idea. Can't be proved. Can I tell you something cool? Okay, what does evolution say? I really get excited about this. What's evolution say? Evolution says that everything moved from a simpler form to a more complex form, right? Isn't that, do we agree?
Yep.
In its essence, that's what evolution is, right? From simple to complex, right? All by itself, right? Right?
Everything
do we agree?
out of the sea.
Who can tell me what the second law of thermodynamics says? Law. Law. Not theory. Law. What does the second law of thermodynamics says? It says everything in the universe left alone will go from order to disorder.